Well, hi everyone, it's Laura here from the bridge again, and as I'm on site I thought I'd take an opportunity to tell you all about this stone plinth that you can just see over the wall when you're walking in Leigh Woods. Now, it doesn't look like very much, and you might be forgiven by thinking it's a fence post or a bit of an old building or something boring like that. But actually it's one of the first parts of the bridge's history, and a really interesting part at that. This piece of stone is all that's left on site of Brunel's famous suspended traveller. So when Brunel began building the bridge in 1831, he had to get his men from one side of the gorge to the other, and they were going down the side of the gorge, across the river on the Brunel ferry, and then back up at the other side. And it took them rather a long time because it was a fair distance to go. And in 1836, when Brunel was in a position to resume his work again, he thought, right, okay, here's a problem that I need to solve. I need to get my men from one side to the other as fast as possible. And what's the best way to do that? The best way is to go directly. So in effect, what Brunel did was to invent a zip wire. He commissioned an iron bar to be made, which was brought down to the bridge in sections and welded together. And the men gradually stretched it out across the Avon Gorge, all the way to the Clifton side. Now, the plan was that Brunel would make the first crossing of the gorge on the 24th of August 1836 as part of the Leigh Woods foundation stone laying ceremony. But just before that date, a bit of a disaster occurred. Just as the men were going to fix the bar into place on the Clifton side, a rope snapped and the whole bar dropped into the mud of the River Avon. Now, it was very quickly collected and lifted up and fixed back into place. But when Brunel looked at it, he said, okay, no, it's no good. I'm not going to be able to do that crossing safely. So they had the foundation stone ceremony, which I've talked about in a previous video, and they all went off for a lovely cold meat buffet breakfast. Delicious. And they left the iron bar here and the basket that was attached to it unattended. Now, the story goes that two of Brunel's workmen, spotting the basket left up here, thought, oh, brilliant, here's a great opportunity for us. They hopped in and they pushed off and they rowed down the bar. But a problem occurred. When the bar had fallen, a kink had been put into it, so it was a slightly bent, not quite straight, and when they got halfway across, they got stuck. They couldn't go forwards and they couldn't go backwards, so they were just left hanging there over the water. Now, the problem here is that the basket had ropes hanging from it, which were designed to help to pull the passengers into the opposite side as you'd ride down the curve to the bottom, and then you need to be pulled up the curve on the other side. And these dangling ropes got caught in the mast of a steamship that was sailing along the Avon Gorge. Now, the pilot or captain of that ship didn't notice the rope because obviously he was checking the river in front of him, and he just gradually sailed down the river towards Pill, not even realising the trouble that was happening right above him. And the men in the basket, they were gradually being drawn back like the load from a bow, about to be twung into the river. And the newspaper said passers-by were sick to their very stomachs with the thought of what was about to happen. And very, very fortunately, a quick-thinking man ran up here to Leigh Woods. He cut the rope that was attached to the basket and stopped it from being dragged any further by the ship. The men in the basket held on for dear life as it swung from side to side, but they avoided falling into the river below and they were pulled back into safety. Now Brunel found out about this and he was obviously extremely cross about it. So we don't know what happened to those men, but we imagine they didn't work for him again. And Brunel had the whole iron bar taken down, chopped up and sold for scrap. But he still needed a way to get his men across. So undefeated, he commissioned a second bar to be made. This one was a bit thicker. It was 1.5 inches in diameter. And within 4 weeks, he'd had that manufactured, made, brought to site, welded and installed. And in fact, on the 27th of September 1836, he was again ready to take the first crossing. Now, he was due to take that crossing with Mrs. Brunel, who said, guess what? Not on your life, I'm not getting into it. So he had to find somebody else who he could bring with him. So he spoke to the secretary of the bridge committee, a man called Captain Christopher Claxton, and asked him if his young son would like to come across with Brunel. And Christopher Claxton said, yes, of course, I trust you implicitly, Mr. Brunel. That will be no problem at all. So the first crossing was made by Isambard Kingdom Brunel and an 11-year-old boy. And after that date, the workmen were able to cross the river free of charge when they were on company business. And for quite some time, tourists were able to have a go as well for a small fee. So it was a very popular thing to do on your wedding day or as part of a birthday celebration. You could pay for a crossing over the Avon Gorge in Brunel's Suspended Traveller. Now gradually work on the bridge slowed down and stopped, and by 1853 the bar was left hanging with nothing happening here. They decided it was time to take the bar down, and they took it down and they chopped it into chunks probably about 8 inches, 15 centimetres long each, and they sold them off as souvenirs with a suspension bridge iron bar stamped in the end. So we've got one of those in the visitor centre. There's a few others knocking around. I think there's one down at M Shed that you can see as well, but you might have one in the loft somewhere, who knows. So if you do find one of those, please do let us know, because we'd love to see it. Okay, well, thanks for listening everybody. I hope you enjoyed the story, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.